Welcome back, and today we are going to be talking about Tropical Storm Bret that has now formed from Invest 92L. And yes, if you couldn't believe it, there's another system behind that, Invest 93L. We're going to be talking about both of those today, but mainly focusing on Bret just because of the new developments surrounding it. But of course, we will be keeping our eyes on 93L in this video and in future videos as well. So be sure, of course, to like and subscribe so you do not miss out on the best weather content out there. And we're just going to get right into it here. Starting with the National Hurricane Center map, here you can see 93L right here. Shower and thunderstorm activity has diminished during the past several hours associated with the tropical wave. However, conditions are conducive for further development, and there is still a likely chance for a tropical depression will likely form during the next couple of days as it moves west at 10 to 15 miles per hour. And of course, it won't really let you highlight it, but we do have Bret sitting right there in its cone that 93L will be tracking through. So they're taking very similar tracks here. We take a look at Bret. It has the potential to become a hurricane. Forecasts have been kind of going back and forth on it. This latest NHC track cone kind of shows a strong tropical storm with winds of about 65 miles an hour. So if we take this out, we play this out here, you can see 8 p.m. AST on June 21st. So tomorrow, 60 mile an hour winds, then 65. And as it approaches Lesser Antilles around Fort de France, around 8 p.m. on the 22nd of June, about 65 mile an hour winds. And then as it enters the Caribbean, 60 mile an hour, 50 miles an hour. But still could carry hurricane force gusts with it. And there are still some models that are definitely taking this storm, I would say almost to the extreme, right? Because some are actually, calling for this storm to form into a hurricane. So if we take a look at it here, on the tropical storm wind probabilities, tropical storm force wind probabilities, the earliest, there's two boxes you can select here. This is the earliest reasonable arrival time map, and there's a most likely map. I would do earliest reasonable. This is a gauge to kind of show you when to be prepared for the wind by, right? Because most likely, that's probably when they're going to arrive. But you want to be prepared by the earliest reasonable time, just in case. So Lesser Antilles, Thursday morning is your time to prepare. All right, so like less than 2 days from now for the tropical storm force winds. Puerto Rico, not sure if you're going to be in it yet, but for you guys, it would be Thursday at 8 p.m. Maybe near the Dominican Republic and Haiti by Friday at 8 a.m. Again, the tracks are uncertain because this could certainly go further north, and then you guys in Puerto Rico, Haiti, Dominican Republic would be in that kind of cone, if you will. But as of right now, there's also about a 40% chance for those winds over the central Lesser Antilles. But of course, those probabilities will go up as the storm draws closer. So if you take a look here at the key messages here, Bret is forecast to approach the Lesser Antilles through early Thursday and then move across the islands Thursday and Thursday night as a tropical storm. Again, a strong one, could even be a hurricane. Again, we're at the watch intensity forecast here. Bringing a risk of flooding, heavy rainfall, strong winds, dangerous waves, of course. And of course, this the larger than usual uncertainty to track and intensity, of course. It's too early to specify the location and the magnitude. So just anywhere, in this region, the Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean, definitely keep your eye out no matter where you are. I would say even the northern tip of South America. I mean, you guys are also, if I go back here, you guys are also on the islands here off the coast of Venezuela are kind of in that little zone, if you will. So, everywhere in the Eastern Caribbean, of course, be sure to watch out. And we could even see tropical storm watches for portions of the Lesser Antilles as early as later today or possibly tonight. Let's take a look at Bret on the satellite here because it's looking pretty impressive compared to yesterday. All right, we do see a lot more thunderstorm activity both on the southwest and the northeast side, and it's got some kind of rotation to it. And we also saw a recent blow up of thunderstorms near the storm center. Again, not necessarily very organized, but we got to remember it's like a 40 mile per hour, 45, whatever, tropical storm. Of course, it's not going to look like, it's not going to have an eye with it yet. But you can still see the outflow looks pretty healthy. We don't have too much shear right now because you can kind of see very light shear kind of coming in this way. But overall, looking pretty good for the storm right now. It's not really sitting in conditions that I would say are hazardous. Of course, we're going to take a look at those in just a little bit. Let's take a look at 93L. Again, National Hurricane Center was kind of right here, seeing some diminishing thunderstorms, but there's still a rotation and conditions are favorable. So when the thunderstorms do spin up again, we could see a development with this one. So that's 93L. Again, doesn't look all that impressive. All right, let's take a look here. We can mark our spots where the low pressures are right here. So here's Bret, and here is 93L kind of chugging on behind it. If we go to the sea surface temperature maps, you can see that Bret is kind of sitting in tropical storm Bret is sitting at about sea surface temperatures of about 82 degrees, while 93L kind of the same. But you can see as it nears the Lesser Antilles, waters will go up to about 84 degrees Fahrenheit, and even as it continues its track after that as well. And of course, it's 88 and not south of Cuba there. But yeah, still very warm waters. That's going to be one of the things that's going to be going for these two systems, honestly. Definitely going to be something to watch there. If we look at the oceanic heat content, you can see that as it again approaches the Lesser Antilles, it's kind of sitting in this pocket of more medium to high oceanic heat content values. It's going to really be able to tap into that energy like it hasn't been able to do when it was further east. Because 93L is kind of over here, Bret's kind of over here. All right, so these two storms will be able to tap into that energy as they move further to the west. And again, not just what's on the surface, but what's below the surface as well. And of course, if it really gets into the central Caribbean, that's where the real oceanic subsurface heat is. All right, so here's the wind steering, what it looks like right now. You can see Bret right here. You can kind of see the Bermuda high that's kind of sitting off to the north there. That's going to be kind of taking the system and pulling it in kind of this direction. Now, the question is that high strong enough to keep it kind of further south in the Caribbean, which could have some hit or miss development chances because, of course, the waters are warm there, great oceanic heat, but, of course, what will the wind shear look like? Or does it kind of take a weaker high and kind of just bends up this way, and eventually with that upper level low sitting over the southeast, does it kind of get squeezed in between those two? That's also another option. It kind of goes out to sea. Or the other option, which I think is a little bit less likely at the moment, is that it kind of does the middle of the two scenarios I just said and just kind of goes right up the middle and into the southeast. All scenarios are possible. I can't say that any one is likely, all right, because it's honestly just a toss up at this current time. And you can kind of see 93L will take a similar path because it's kind of right behind the system almost. It's going to be able to tap into those same wind steering factors there. If we take a look at the tropical intensity index, some favorable development conditions in and around the very eastern Caribbean, around the Lesser Antilles, all right, and also in the southwest Atlantic there. But other than that, not really much to speak of in terms of zones that are conducive for development. If we take a look at the Saharan air layer right now, kind of the water vapor. All right, we have Bret right here. We have 93L right here. Tropical storm Bret might be running into some drier air here as it makes its trek towards the Lesser Antilles. But 93L has got a bit more of a pocket, and that dry air to work with there. So if we take a look at the Saharan air layer here, you can see again, here's Bret and here's 93L again. You can see where that, I wouldn't say it's extreme, but there is enough dry air. Because again, tropical storm Bret isn't necessarily, formed a lot yet. It can't really withstand it. Think of it kind of like as a hurricane gets stronger and bigger, it kind of builds a kind of like a force field to protect itself. But Bret doesn't really have that yet. And so it might be running into a little bit more dry air. But again, 93L has a little bit more time to work with because it's further east. Again, if we look at the wind shear, Bret's not doing too bad right now. And if it stays in the cone that the National Hurricane Center puts out here, it might be good until after it passes the Lesser Antilles, and then it kind of gets a little bit more uncertain after that again with what the wind shear would be in the Caribbean. But even 93L, it's got a good zone to work with, especially where that cone is. But the cone is pointed a little bit further to the north, so I don't know, maybe it might tap into that higher wind shear that's to the north. So, but if Bret can avoid that, stay further south, I think its development chances into a hurricane would be greater. So here we have another wind shear map to kind of gauge. Again, I like this one because it's kind of like I said before, it's kind of like a traffic light. Green means you're good to go. Yellow is like caution, and then red is like no, stop, not good to go. So if we take a look at this wind shear map here, of course, you can read in the official key, green is favorable, yellow is okay, neutral, and then red is kind of like unfavorable. You can see tropical storm Bret right here, maybe going to some slightly unfavorable wind shear conditions. But if I had to be honest, 25 to 30 knots, like it's showing in that red line right there, that's not the worst shear I've ever seen. And if the other conditions, like the dry air and the ocean water temperatures, line up well, I think it could withstand 25 to 30 knots. It may not weaken, but it probably won't strengthen either. Then we have 93L sitting in some, Bret right now is sitting in some good wind shear conditions, as is 93L, but it's just what they're going to encounter further on down the line may not be so favorable. Now the majority of the model tracks here, if we take a look at the model track guidance, most of them now keep it barreling to the west into the central Caribbean. Now, that can be good and that can be bad. It can be good because now when I'm saying good, I'm saying it from the perspective of, no one wants to get impacted by the system. I say good because as of right now, in the Caribbean, there's a lot of wind shear, especially in the central parts, that would kind of help to weaken it. It's kind of like drawing it into a trap, if you will. But on the bad side, that the ocean waters are very, very warm. And that's not something, because wind shear can change in a day or two, especially maybe even a couple of days. But that can change, right? Ocean water temperatures don't really budge that much, within a couple of days. So if the ocean waters are warm, like they are, that's a fact. They're in the mid to upper 80s almost in some areas. That it kind of taking a chance, because if that wind shear is not really there by the time Bret gets there, we could be talking about a strengthening storm on our hands, and God forbid if it were to turn to the north. So it's kind of like a dangerous scenario that's playing out here. But I think there will be land impacts no matter what, barring that it doesn't dissipate, because it's either going to, especially if it doesn't bend to the north. If it keeps going west, it will run into some kind of land, whether it's Mexico, Central America, or it could turn to the north and affect, the U.S. All are possibilities at the moment. Right? If we take a look at the NCB pace probabilities here, you can kind of see that 70 to 80% zone for 93L, and it could take a more northerly track, although they said the same thing about Bret, so who knows at this point. But if that Bermuda high give it some more time to weaken, it could certainly take a more northerly path. But these two systems here looking very similar at the moment, not in strength, but in where they're going. If we look at the HWRF parent, we can kind of see both systems side by side, and take a look at Bret here. All right, it's practically a Category 3 hurricane now by Friday morning. It's about to approach the Lesser Antilles, 100 knots. That's like 111 mile-an-hour winds, almost 115. So that's definitely Category 3 status. And then you got your tropical storm that 93L could develop into behind that. Yeah, look at this. We got winds, 107 knots, getting as high as 100 right there, 110. So that is definitely Category 3, closing in on Category 4 status. With pressure going as low as 955 millibars, that is just crazy. Then kind of going to the north, kind of skirting past Puerto Rico there. And this kind of track is kind of what favors, heading towards the southeast. So let's hope that doesn't happen. And then, of course, you got your 93L kind of sitting behind that. Take a look at the simulate. Again, this is a simulated satellite image, all right? Kind of like a forecast. You can kind of see here, by Friday morning, there's that eye. So you can definitely tell it's a hurricane. And then it's got a little splotch, the tropical storm that 93L could form into, the C name there. And you can see as they continue to move to the north. But it looks like a boundary could sweep in, as you can see by satellite, maybe a little frontal system, little dip in the little trough here. That could help to kind of take the system and pull it out. So let's hope that's the case. Right, and we definitely do not want any U.S. impacts here. All right, we take a look at the HWRF from the precipitation models. You can see that rain bang is huge. All right, we got an eye forming. It's over the Lesser Antilles. Massive amounts of rainfall here. That could certainly be causing lots of flash flooding. All right, and the rainfall would arrive in these areas by Friday morning, like early morning, like 2 a.m., and probably not leave until Saturday morning. So I wouldn't say terribly long, but it's definitely just over 24 hours here. And this is also suggesting a direct hit on Puerto Rico. You can see right here, coming up from the south and east here onto Puerto Rico. All right, and you've pretty much got it coming from all sides here, because we've got the water coming on shore here. We've got the water coming on shore over here because of the rotation of the low pressure system, and we got rain. Like literally the wind and rain field is like bigger than the entire island. So that's how you know you're really in for something there, right? You can see the rainfall kind of approaching there, 2 a.m. Sunday, maybe lingering into Sunday afternoon to early Monday. So again, the HWRF model, good intensity model. I can't say if they're a good tracking model, but for intensity, they're pretty good and reliable. I can't say they're good 100% of the time. But definitely something to watch out here for the Lesser Antilles and for Puerto Rico. Definitely something to keep our eyes out for, of course. And you can see on the GFS model, really about 50 knots, that's about it. And then it kind of dissipates once it gets over the Caribbean. So GFS not really showing what they once were here, what they were showing yesterday. And then as for the European model, they're kind of sticking true to what they said yesterday, like a weak tropical storm, 40 to 50 mile-an-hour winds. once it crosses the Lesser Antilles, it kind of starts to weaken. So I see two scenarios here. I see a scenario in which it intensifies as it approaches the Lesser Antilles and keeps on intensifying as it heads into the Caribbean or maybe bends up to the north, or I see it intensifying up until the Lesser Antilles, and after that, as it enters the Caribbean, it starts to slowly dissipate. So definitely a lot to keep track with here, but there are some new developments on Bret, and of course that new development with 93L, so definitely keep it here for updates. I am the Weather Dude signing off. Till next time, I will catch you guys in the next video.